When a drop-dead gorgeous woman walks into the world's most dangerous men's prison, she's not just there to survive, she's about to shake things up with blood, speed, and seduction.
Hey folks, Mahi here. Heads up, there are spoilers ahead, so grab your snacks and let's dive into today's story.
The movie begins with Jensen Ames, an industrial worker and ex-prisoner, facing a harsh reality. His steel mill is shutting down without paying the owed wages. Frustration erupts among the workers, leading to a protest outside the factory as tensions rise. Riot police arrive, responding with immediate violence. When Jensen sees his co-workers being beaten, he jumps in, fighting back. In the chaos, he takes down several officers before escaping the scene. By the time he makes it home, night has fallen. He greets his wife and heads upstairs to check on their baby, unaware that a masked intruder has already broken into the house. Seizing the opportunity, the killer murders Jensen's wife in the kitchen. As Jensen returns downstairs, the intruder ambushes him from behind, knocking him unconscious before planting the murder weapon in Jensen's hand. With a mocking gesture, the killer ensures Jensen will take the fall. Moments later, Jensen wakes up to flashing lights and sirens. Police storm in and arrest him for a crime he didn't commit. 6 months later, Jensen is transferred to Terminal Island Prison. His arrival is anything but welcoming. Guard Ulrich greets him with a blast of freezing water before allowing another officer to beat him. He's then escorted to a cell with 3 violent inmates, all clearly eager to test him. Hours later, Ulrich returns, expecting to see Jensen broken. Instead, he finds all 3 cellmates knocked out cold. The next morning, Jensen steps into the mess hall, immediately drawing attention. Prisoners Coach, Gunnar, and List quietly observe him, recognizing him as a once legendary driver whose record-breaking career ended in tragedy. The tense atmosphere shifts when Pachinko and his friend approach. They spit in Jensen's food and taunt him, calling him a wife killer and child abuser. The insult pushes Jensen over the edge, and he attacks Pachinko in a blind rage. Before the fight can escalate, the guards intervene, dragging him away. Jensen is taken to Warden Claire Hennessy's office. She already knows everything about his past, his skills, his reputation, and, most importantly, his talent behind the wheel. She makes him an offer. She wants Jensen to take on the role of Frankenstein, the masked driver of the infamous death race. The truth? The real Frankenstein died after his last race, but the public doesn't know that yet. With Frankenstein being a fan-favorite legend, Hennessy is determined to keep his death a secret. The myth must live on to maintain the show's ratings. She offers Jensen a tempting deal: win one more race and earn his freedom. Since Frankenstein had already won several races, Jensen only needs one victory to secure his release. But Jensen hesitates. A race where drivers die isn't an easy decision. Hennessy, however, won't take no for an answer. She threatens him with solitary confinement, ensuring he can't expose her secret. Left with no alternative, Jensen is forced to accept. He's taken to the prison's auto shop where he meets Coach and his mechanics, the team responsible for Frankenstein's car. They lay out the rules. Every driver is on their own. No alliances. Jensen also notices a large restricted workshop where Hennessy has been building something in secret. Coach introduces Jensen to his car, a heavily modified Mustang V8 fastback loaded with weapons and armor. However, to prevent escape attempts, ammunition is only loaded on race day. Coach makes it clear, escaping this island is impossible. The only exit is a narrow bridge, heavily guarded by helicopters and patrol cars, ensuring that no one makes it out alive. Later in the prison yard, Coach explains the 3-stage structure of the race. In the first 2 stages, elimination is key. Drivers must take out their rivals. In the final stage, speed matters most. The first to cross the finish line wins. Each racer is assigned a navigator, usually a woman from the women's facility. The only exception is Joe, who cycles through navigators so quickly it makes even the audience uncomfortable. Jensen listens as List fills him in on the key competitors. The first is 14K, a ruthless triad member with an unexpected background. Before landing in prison, he was an MIT graduate. Then there's Hector Green, a full-blown psychopath who worships Hennessy. Slovo Pachinko, the Aryan Brotherhood leader, has earned a reputation for his brutality both on and off the track. And finally, there's Travis Colt, a disgraced former NASCAR driver whose downfall left him desperate to prove himself again. Their conversation is interrupted when Joe and his crew confront Jensen. They taunt him, making it clear this race is between Joe and Frankenstein. At that moment, a prison transport van arrives, returning inmates from a work area. Jensen notices something strange. The prisoners are wearing GPS tracking bracelets. A disturbing realization hits him. The man who killed his wife was wearing the same bracelet. With no time to process this, the first stage of the race begins. Jensen has fully transformed into Frankenstein, wearing the legend's signature clothes, mask, and even his ring. His return instantly recaptures the audience's attention, bringing back the show's lost viewers. Before the race, Coach warns him to stay silent around the other drivers. Frankenstein's mystique depends on it. However, once inside the car, he can remove the mask, as the windows are mirrored. Case already knows the truth. As they prepare, Jensen asks Case about her past. She reveals that she killed a cop, her own husband. He was abusive, and she had no other choice. Before they can say more, the countdown begins. The first lap is tame compared to what's coming. Weapons won't activate until the second, but drivers still do whatever they can to shove each other off the track. Thanks to Case's guidance, Jensen keeps up with Joe at the front. When she spots a shortcut, she directs him through it, allowing him to take the lead. As soon as the second lap begins, Hennessy activates the shields and weapons. Now, drivers must steer over special manholes, hitting all four wheels to enable their combat systems. Chaos erupts as the race transforms into an all-out battle. To raise the stakes, Hennessy activates the Death Head's deadly traps, strategically placed across the track. Grimm is the first to take advantage of them. He slams another driver into a trap, killing him instantly, then slows Joe down by shooting oil onto his car, forcing him to spin out. But Grimm doesn't last long. 14K launches a missile at him, forcing his car off the track. As Grimm stumbles out, Joe finishes him off, running him over without hesitation. Jensen manages to activate his car's weapons, but his machine gun jams at the worst possible moment. Case doesn't hesitate. She climbs under the hood mid-race to fix it. Gunfire rains down on them, but Jensen's precise driving keeps her safe. She quickly returns to her seat, and they push forward. The battle intensifies. Jensen manages to steal a defense manhole from Colt, but just like with the real Frankenstein, none of his defense systems activate. The rear shield takes heavy fire, wearing down fast. Thinking quickly, Jensen comes up with a risky plan. He tells Case to unhook the napalm canister and sit on his lap. With perfect timing, he ejects her seat, sending the canister flying toward Colt's car. As the canister smashes into Colt's vehicle, Case follows up by tossing the car's lighter. The napalm ignites, engulfing Colt's car in flames, taking him out of the race. Jensen now faces Joe head-to-head. Suddenly, something distracts him. Pachinko, driving ahead, makes a familiar hand gesture. It's the same one the man who killed his wife made before escaping. Jensen freezes. The shock pulls him out of focus. Joe seizes the moment, slamming into Jensen's car and knocking him into last place while Pachinko takes first. By the end of the race, 3 drivers are dead and 6 remain. Back at the garage, Coach and his team inspect the car. Strangely, nothing is wrong with the systems. Everything should have worked. Jensen, now frustrated and suspicious, starts connecting the dots. He confronts Hennessy, accusing her of orchestrating everything: his wife's murder, rigging the race, and using Pachinko to manipulate him into taking Frankenstein's place. Hennessy doesn't confirm anything. Instead, she hits him where it hurts. She reveals a photo of his daughter, now in foster care. If he wants to see her again, he has no choice but to play along. Jensen, knowing he's trapped, returns to the yard and speaks with Coach. Jensen asks why Coach doesn't wear a prisoner number. Coach explains that technically he isn't an inmate. His sentence ended 3 years ago. However, after spending so much time inside, the outside world no longer felt like home. Instead of leaving, he chose to stay in prison, where the races and the familiar routine gave him a sense of purpose. He also reveals that he doesn't believe Jensen killed his wife. Later that evening, while working on his car, Jensen spots Pachinko passing by and decides to follow him to his team's pit. The moment he steps inside, he's ambushed. Pachinko lands several heavy blows before grabbing a large metal tool, fully intending to crush Jensen's skull. Despite Hennessy's protection, he doesn't hesitate. Before he can strike, Liszt suddenly intervenes and stabs Pachinko in the back with a pen. Seizing the moment, Jensen grabs a metal rod from the ground and drives it into one of Pachinko's men. He knocks out the remaining captors before turning his full attention to Pachinko. Fueled by rage, he delivers brutal punches, slamming him into nearby crates and equipment. With nowhere left to run, Pachinko finally confesses. Hennessy ordered the hit on Jensen's wife, and Ulrich was the one who brought him to the house. Before Jensen can finish him off, Ulrich and another guard storm in, breaking up the fight and dragging Jensen away. The next day, just before the second stage of the race begins, Pachinko mocks Jensen again, repeating the same taunting hand gesture that haunted him on the night of his wife's murder. This time, Jensen doesn't react. Instead, as soon as the race starts, he deliberately slows down and veers into a tunnel, using the cover to confront Case. Jensen wastes no time. He accuses Case of killing the real Frankenstein. He knows the failure of the car's gadgets in 2 consecutive races isn't a coincidence. Case hesitates, but Jensen doesn't wait for an answer. He grips the eject button, warning her that if she doesn't tell the truth, she's out. Seeing no other choice, Case confesses. She admits to sabotaging Frankenstein's rear weapons under Hennessy's orders. She was promised freedom in return, but the goal was never to kill Frank, only to ensure he lost, allowing Hennessy to keep exploiting his fame. Frank's desperation to win without working weapons turned it into a fatal accident. Jensen now has all the proof he needs. Without another word, he shifts gears and races back onto the track, ignoring Joe. His focus is locked on Pachinko. They clash repeatedly, bumping and swerving, each trying to force the other off the road, but neither succeeds. Jensen then makes an unusual move. He activates the weapon's manhole instead of the defense system. Everyone is confused. His car's guns are mounted at the front. Moments later, Jensen shocks the entire crowd. He spins the car around and drives backward with a perfect line of fire. He unleashes a barrage of bullets on Pachinko's vehicle. The damage mounts quickly, with the car barely holding together. Jensen switches tactics, releasing a smokescreen to blind Pachinko. With no way to see ahead, Pachinko crashes straight into a concrete barrier. Jensen stops his car and steps out without hesitation. He walks up to Pachinko and, in one swift motion, breaks his neck in cold blood, avenging his wife. Meanwhile, Joe swaps out his navigator mid-race, preparing for the final showdown. Just as the race intensifies, Hennessy unveils the secret weapon she has been preparing for weeks. A massive, heavily armed tanker truck known as Dreadnought. The monstrous vehicle storms onto the track, its sheer size and firepower making it nearly unstoppable. It obliterates two minor racers instantly, crushing everything in its path. Unlike the other cars, Dreadnought has no track restrictions and is even allowed to cut through buildings, reappearing ahead of the competition. As the destruction continues, 14K's navigator becomes its next target. The Dreadnought tortures him on the track, trapping his car with chains and firing relentlessly until it bursts into flames. With only Jensen and Joe remaining, winning seems impossible without a plan. Realizing this, Jensen contacts List and has his communicator linked to Joe's car. Both racers agree to team up against the Dreadnought, flanking it from both sides. Jensen and Joe skillfully dodge its relentless attacks. Spotting a trap manhole, they time their movements perfectly, each hitting it with two wheels and triggering the trap beneath the Dreadnought. The massive truck slams into it, flipping violently and coming to a dead stop. With the Dreadnought destroyed, the second stage ends, leaving only Jensen and Joe for the final race. Later that evening, Joe approaches Jensen in the pit. He studies him closely and notes that Jensen's voice sounds eerily similar to Frankenstein's. Meanwhile, Hennessy and Ulrich decide that Jensen must not survive the final race. The next day, just before the last stage begins, Ulrich discreetly plants a bomb under Jensen's car, while Hennessy distracts everyone with a speech about racing being their ultimate purpose. As she mentions how this could be the first time someone wins their freedom with a fifth victory, Jensen realizes something chilling. No one has ever been allowed to win 5 races. It was never about victory. The races were always rigged to ensure no driver ever escaped. Coach overhears Jensen's realization and shows him a key detail from a video of Grimm's death. This sparks an idea. Jensen immediately asks List to install a half-gallon reserve tank in his car. Then he heads to Joe's pit to propose one final collaboration. As Jensen changes into Frankenstein's gear, Hennessy visits him with his release papers and a new proposition. If he wins today, she doesn't want him to leave. She wants him to stay in prison and keep the legend of Frankenstein alive. She insists that an ex-con like him could never give his daughter a good life. Staying in the race, she argues, would be his ultimate act of love. Jensen takes the release papers without a word and slips them into his pocket as he prepares for the race. Case reveals that Hennessy also spoke to her, ordering her to stop Jensen if he was about to win. Jensen isn't worried. He has other plans. The race begins, and Ulrich manipulates the manholes, activating them only when Joe drives over them. He then opens fire, severely damaging Jensen's rear shield and forcing him to drop it. But Joe is prepared. Having studied Frankenstein's past races, he knows exactly how to evade the attacks. As the battle intensifies, Hennessy, eager to keep viewers engaged, activates a defense manhole for Jensen.
Joe, however, fires a rocket at it, destroying it instantly. He launches more rockets, but Jensen skillfully dodges each one, letting them hit a specific wall. This isn't random. Jensen and Joe have planned everything. The rockets strike a weak spot in the wall, the same one damaged during Grimm's crash. The barrier crumbles, creating a massive hole. Instead of racing for victory, Jensen and Joe execute their real plan, escaping the prison. This is their final act of defiance against Hennessy's rigged system. Enraged, Hennessy shuts down the live broadcast. Chaos erupts. She orders every available officer to hunt them down. Hennessy presses the detonator, expecting Jensen's car to explode, but nothing happens. Her plan has failed. Coach and his crew had already removed and deactivated the bomb. Meanwhile, Jensen and Joe speed toward the bridge, but the police are closing in fast. It's time for the next phase of their escape. Jensen releases the extra half-gallon reserve tank, letting it fall onto the pursuing police cars. The impact triggers a massive explosion, creating a fiery barrier that blocks the path and prevents more officers from following. With no obstacles left, they break through the bridge gates. As they cross, they split up onto two separate roads, hoping to confuse the helicopters. The plan works. The choppers zero in on Jensen, seeing him as the primary target. Back at the prison, Case decides to help Jensen with the final part of the plan. She owes it to Frank, and with her release papers already in hand, she has nothing to lose. Jensen spots a series of construction cranes ahead and takes the opportunity. He leaps out of the car, disappearing into the shadows. Case, now in the driver's seat, keeps going. Moments later, helicopters cut off her path with a wall of fire, forcing her to stop. She steps out, hands raised in surrender, wearing Frank's clothes and mask. Now, she is Frankenstein.
The twist leaves everyone confused. The authorities believe they've captured the real Frankenstein, allowing Jensen to escape. Case is arrested and taken back to prison, completing the deception. Meanwhile, Jensen reunites with Joe, and together they board a train, disappearing into the distance. Back at Terminal Island Prison, Ulrich watches the ratings skyrocket. Congratulations pour in along with gifts celebrating another thrilling race. He casually opens a package, unaware of its contents. Inside, he finds the bomb he planted under Jensen's car. Before he can react, it detonates, killing both him and Hennessy in a fiery explosion. 6 months later, Jensen and Joe have built a new life in Santa Rosalia, Mexico. Together, they run a small auto shop, working as mechanics. Far from the chaos of the death race, Jensen has regained custody of his daughter, finally giving her the life he always wanted. Everything has fallen into place. Soon, Case arrives, now officially free. Her release papers have finally been processed. She smiles as she steps into the shop, bringing along a new racing car for them to check out. And with that, the movie ends. So that's it. If you enjoyed this movie, share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to check out the recommended movie on your screen right now. Watch it and join Mahi's movie recaps.